there's some people have appetites for like 3 or 4 hours of podcasts. They want a podcast that is like their entire day, and I can't imagine doing that. That's way too long. That's too much. Why would you slow down? It's like those people who listen to the hardcore history.
Yeah. Well, you have books to write too. So
I have, well, yeah, I do have books to write.
Yeah.
Short stories to write right now, but same difference. The Bloody Bucket, Douglas Ford, comes out in
Oh, wait a minute.
other side.
There you go.
There you go. It's other side. Comes out in 8 days as of the day this drops. So you have people listening have a short span of time to get their pre-orders in.
Get on it.
Yeah, exactly. And they should. I love the Bloody Bucket. I blurbed it. I think it's one of my favorite books from last year that is coming out this year, technically. It's, I think I called it the best book about Florida that I've ever read, or something along those lines.
And I'm honored. Thank you.
Yes, but I mean, it's like, and it's also I'm kind of happy that you wrote this book because it covers a lot of things that were floating around up here.
And
I went, yeah, and I went, I don't. And I've been like itching. I should write. I have one book set in Florida. I'm like, maybe I should write another Florida book, more about Florida. And then you wrote this, and I read it. I'm like, Doug got it. I don't need to.
I reached into your head, grabbed it,
pulled it out,
put it on the page.
Yeah. I don't think I could do it better. Is honestly the answer. Is like I don't think I could do maybe in 5 years when I'm like have a different brain, maybe then I can tackle it. I'm gonna ask you some questions. Before we do that, I've started doing this. Will you give people an elevator pitch for the Bloody Bucket? Just a broad couple sentence pitch.
Well, it is kind of a dark academe book that is, that's kind of a genre that's emerging. But it is filtered through my own peculiar take on Florida. It's about haunts. It's about how Gothic Florida is. It's about buried histories kind of being juxtaposed with the present. And it's full of creepy and weird and I think wonderful characters. I really enjoy my characters. They become like real people to me. I'm not sure that's the elevator pitch you were looking for, but that's.
It's about I would say it is about a college professor uncovering a dark history, dark past, interspersed with myth and folklore and storytelling, which is a lot of my questions revolve around that.
Yeah, storytelling is a motif in the book, and what narrative is, and some, as you say, some lore, both some of it real, some of it imagined, some of it invented. But
well, you say that. Let's start with a simplest question, and we can work our way into more complicated things.
All right.
So, and you've used this before, but I think I want to make this clear to people who aren't Floridians who read this book, because this book is set in Visaria County, which is it's not a real county in Florida.
It doesn't
exist. But I think people, if they read it, they would just go, oh, okay, yeah, Visaria County, sure, why not? Yeah. It's not like they know. But why? And I know you used Visaria County as a setting before. But why the construction? Why not set it in one of the various real counties?
Well, the book doesn't start in Visaria County, and it's kind of something that organically happened. I got pulled back, partly because I realized a character from one of my previous novels, The Beast of Visaria County, needed to return. And for that, I had to get back to Visaria County. And it's fun. It's a fun place that is rather fluid in its borders. And it's also fluid in what the history of it. And it's really fun. With each time I write about Visaria County, I discover something new about it. And sometimes I borrow from other geographies in Florida, but it is, and if you ask me where it is, I can kind of give you rough idea. I can tell you it's shaped kind of like an S, which, a backwards S. Um, but it's a place I get drawn to. It is, I guess in a lot of ways, it's a manifestation of my imagination. It is the Florida sometimes I want to live in. It's sometimes the Florida I don't want to live in. And it is beautiful. It's also swampy and weird, and there's always something bubbling up from it. The way the state works, I think there's always something weird bubbling up in this state that is could be, it's some fascinating but also unsettling at the same time.
I like it.
Thank you.
Don't get me wrong. I love fictional. I almost always make a fictional setting for, even if it's in a place that is a real place, because I want to control it. I want to own the place. I don't want people bringing in. And you do reference lots of real places in Florida, lots and lots and lots. Which, I mean, if you are a Floridian or if you've been to Florida, you will know many of them, which is nice because it gives everything a verisimilitude. If I said that correctly.
Yeah.
That's one of those words that I read a million times before I ever tried to say it out loud. And then I sound like a dummy.
Well, I'm letting you say it. I'm not going to.
Okay. Vera. See, I can't even do it. I did it one time and I got it. Storytelling. There's a bunch of perspective characters. There is your main perspective character. There's Nat. She's the main character, I guess. But she has stories told to her.
Right.
She retells her stories. We have multiple chapters, which are diversionary chapters to other people's narratives, them telling stories. And sometimes in those chapters, they are retelling stories that are told to them.
Yeah. There's a bit of a nested narrative going on here.
Bit.
Yeah. Almost like Russian nesting dolls where you open one up and find another. And I really like that structure, and it's fun to play with. I'm rereading Frankenstein right now, and I'm fascinated by the fact that Frankenstein also has that nested narrative that you forget. We're hearing a story being told to Walton, but then he's retelling other people's stories in it as if they're telling them, and you get lost in the illusion. And that's something that, as you go on with The Bloody Bucket, it becomes more, what I'm hoping is more immersive, where that process where you can enter another person's consciousness and feel what their experiences were, that's at the heart of storytelling. That's why we write stories and novels, is to create that illusion and to share those experiences. And that's kind of what's happening with Nat. Nat becomes almost a focus point for these other narratives that are emerging around her.
It's almost a medium.
Yeah. Which is a key motif in the book.
Yes,
not to give anything away, but
no,
people can channel other things and other people.
Right. And I mean, it's also, you also get different versions.
Yeah.
Of the same story.
Right.
Of the origins of the Bloody Bucket, which I don't know how much we should give away about what the Bloody Bucket is or is not, because it is, I think, one of the central mysteries of the story is what is true and what is not about this folklore.
And that is something particular about Florida and it's the history. And there are multiple Bloody Buckets that I kind of drew from, and I kind of merged them to some degree. There is a Bloody Bucket Bridge in one part of Florida that has this lore that I kind of borrowed from a little bit. And there's a chapter in the book, I think the first part, that alludes to it. So I was hoping to acknowledge it, but there's also a Bloody Bucket closer to where I am, which was a kind of an old speakeasy that I also drew from, because they had special concoction of moonshine and strawberry that apparently was very popular, including amongst school children. Apparently, they used to serve it to school children, apparently, during the Prohibition era, which, boy, the good old days, right?
The good old days when children got drunk in the middle of the day.
I know.
The good old days. Yeah, we should definitely go back to that.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, that's again, I think one of the motifs of the book, and the thing I think I attach myself to so strongly to is this nature of truth,
Hmm.
of how nebulous it is, how you have multiple versions of the same story in which these folklore mythic figures are villains, are heroes, are somewhere in the middle, which might be probably as closest to the truth,
Yeah.
but you don't know. We none of us know. These are all just these stories passed down, and it is more about the person telling the story. That is what you're actually, the only truth you're getting is what version of the story is being told tells you who that person
Yes.
is. More about them than the story itself.
And I like horror as a vehicle through which we can think about these different versions of the truth. And I think that's why I really wanted the central motif to be this haunt that people are creating, a holiday haunt each year, because that's fun. It's fun to think about those things, but also how there are narratives embedded in that, and where we get those narratives is so important, because sometimes they're coming from places and voices that have been marginalized and forgotten. And I'm fascinated by that process, especially with something like the Bloody Bucket Bridge, which is one of the kind of the origin stories that appears in this book, which was a woman of color who was originally enslaved, depending upon the version of the story, who was carrying out these, depending upon who you ask, who tells the story is different, whether or not she was an abortionist, whether or not she was somebody who was just kind of a midwife, who was just kind of helping women who were going through these awful, moments of childbirth. But we've attached a ghost story to it that was always fascinating to me, and I wanted to use that just really badly, and somehow, and this became the vehicle.
Well, there's I mean, it's all the, the mixture of, I mean, it's also like what is true, it's also what is real. And there is that, element of us believing in something strongly enough can propel it to make it real. Um, you bring up haunts. I wrote down in my notes when I was rereading, it was like safe versus unsafe. This
Hmm.
nature, like, and like, I don't know. When I first read the book, I'm like, is Doug writing a story about building haunts? Like, literally? I'm like, no, most of it is not that. It's just that's a way to get into things. But I'm like, there is this idea of like, oh, well, a haunted house, is a safe, it's a place to feel catharsis and to be scared, but you're no danger. Um, but it is just in that way. It is pretending to be an unsafe place while being a safe place,
Right.
and the way that we embed folklore and ghost stories into real history and act like they don't mean anything, act like they don't have meaning, but actually no, the way that they are told, the way that you are, uh I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but as a child, there were definitely stories that I was told about myths and folklore and ghost stories and things like that. And then not until I'm a much older adult that I realized, oh, that was actually teaching me very bad things. Of,
Well, I think control's the word too, that we're looking for, not just, simply control of us as human individuals, but also controlling a narrative, and making it, wanting it to be true, wanting it to be one thing when it wants to be something else, which is something I know, as a writer, I know as a writer, you're not always in control of the story you're telling. Sometimes it wants to do something else, and sometimes you have to go along with the ride. And for me, that became the main motif of this haunt. It's finding the narrative for it. The people who create it and put it together every year are always looking for the narrative. What is the story we're telling? And to what extent do we become controlled by the story as opposed to the other way around? And as a writer, that's, to me, that's really kind of exciting and scary at the same time. um, because you don't always know if it's going to work, if it's going to go to the place where you think it is. And I had this idea in mind about how the Bloody Bucket would end, and it almost ended the way I thought it would. Not quite, but I when I got to that ending, I felt so good about it. I thought this is better than what I was imagining, and how these what's happening with this narrative. Of course, I'm not saying what it is, but
I loved it. It made me cry. I want to be
oh
very
my God, did
I
it?
told
Thank
yeah,
you.
I was crying on an airplane. I told you about that off like many when I first sent you the blurb. I'm like, yeah, I sent it on an email. I sent you my email 15 minutes of free internet on an airplane. But it did make me cry. I mean, it's very cathartic. Um,
Yeah.
the I wanted to ask you about tone
Mm.
because this book, it's not a long book, but it feels sprawling at times
Mm.
because it travels, because of those stories that are from from all over. It makes the book feel, I think, very large, even though it's not a long book. Which thank God for that. I think I've hit my limit for long novels. It's January. I'm already like, I don't know if I can. I just read a really long book. Um, but in that sprawl, quote unquote, in that bigness, there's different tone, there's different voices, and I would immediately, like when I'm reading it, I'm like, I would be worried about, oh, am I giving people whiplash? Am I like, oh, we have this very like
Mm.
heartfelt, sad thing, and then suddenly this almost not quite wacky, but I know you, and I think that infiltrate your voice infiltrated in when I was reading, and I'm like, this is very. It's not quite the silly slash wacky, campy horror territory, but it's close to it at times, especially with like Gustav and with Lenny
Yeah.
Leonardus. Were you conscious of that as you were writing?
Yes.
Were you worried about it?
I'm a very dialogue driven writer. I love dialogue. I love it when I hear the characters. And there's humor in everything I've written. I can't think of anything that is deadly. I mean, it's serious. Don't get me wrong. I write serious stuff. I think serious, but I I enjoy the moments where there's cracks in it and where there's a certain, and to me it comes out of a sense of fabulism a
Yeah,
little bit,
there's definitely that in here.
and I'm attracted to that as a reader. I think I'm thinking of Hot and Cold Showers, the in terms of
Right.
that, where when you to have horror, you have to have the opposite sometimes too. You have to have, I hesitate to call it levity, because there's characters that are that have humorous moments in this book, but there's deadly serious things attached to them. Um, and they're the one, Lenny is a dangerous character to me. He is,
He's scary.
I
He's very scary.
you
He's
can't,
very, very insidious.
but he was inspired by, when I was in high school. I was doing a service project in a prison, and I can't remember how this got arranged, but it was down near the in South Florida, off the Florida Everglades. And I remember how the idea was, I was working with kids who were brought in by their parents when they were going to see somebody who was incarcerated, and there was a prisoner in charge of rabbits. So I drew this, that there's a certain part about Lenny that I drew from experience, and it was always, that experience struck with me, that there was somebody who was in charge of rabbits inside this prison. And there was a moment that you kind of get lost in the moment where you're taking care of these rabbits, and there's children, and then they have the lineup where they have, when all the people are going to leave, and they have to have all the prisoners stand in line. And it really, that moment never left me. And so there's a scene in this book that's very much comes out of that, and a character who is linked to that, that I kind of loosely based on this person who was in charge of the rabbits.
I
Um,
mean, Lenny is. I don't know. I know of your, the. I literally have given you a book about the devil, so it's like I know there's there's illusions there. It also feels like Lenny is. I don't know. There's maybe it's just because we had recently talked about it, but I mastered Margarita with the devil in
I love
Moscow.
that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I have a tattoo of Behemoth. Um, it's but is there's like that. It's like Lenny is that turn on a dime like character with like sinister. And you're like,
Hmm.
and you don't know really what he is, and he seems to shapeshift.
Yeah.
And like there's people are like, no, he's just an old guy. He's just a prisoner. He's yeah,
Hmm.
he's dangerous, but he's not supernatural. And then
No.
you're like, but then you're like, I don't know if I believe that. Maybe that's you just, and again, it's that nature of like, even the people who are theoretically, I would say, voices of reason, I don't
Mm.
necessarily trust because
No.
they have their own reasons to want to ascribe a normalcy to the
No.
world.
He's an extremely untrustworthy character, as are other characters in the book, because there's not one authoritative voice that and this is something that um, my wife and I talk about. She's my first reader, my best reader, and she's the one who often encourages me. You got to give somebody something solid to build the foundation of the interpretation on, and she's absolutely right. But I like that uncertainty too, and I like that sense of things that things are more fluid than one absolutely authoritative voice.
Right. I mean, I think there are certain books where you have to, I don't know, a certain story, let's say, that I think a concrete foundation matters. But in this book, where it is about, I feel like the entire book is about liquid and nebulous
Yes.
storytelling about myth. It there should I feel like it's good to have a lot of things. Most things are liquid. Most things are, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if that's true.
Hmm.
And it's like the that the college campus, even when was the security guard who's just like, yeah, I don't know, yeah, there's lepers back there.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? There's a leper
It's
colony. It's just,
yes.
yes.
And there's even even the boundaries of it are fluid and uncertain. And there's a detail in there when a storm reveals a sign is that reveals that the presence of a former structure on near the property. And I was inspired by that when Hurricane Ian went through my area. It revealed an old hotel sign nearby, and I didn't know what this was. Did anybody know there was an old hotel built here? And I was fascinated by the fact that when these storms come through and tear away things, and they reveal what was once there, and I was really excited by that. And that in itself is about the fluid boundaries and yeah, that security guard. The security guard was fun to write. He's like
Sarge.
Sarge.
Sarge. He's a security guard at a college. Sarge. We have to call him
Well,
Sarge.
yep.
Oh, I know guys like that. I have one more question before we move on to our next segment.
Yeah.
Um, it's about Zora Neale Hurston,
Ah,
who
yeah.
plays a big role in this book. She provides a sacred text,
Yes.
which I really liked. Um,
Hmm.
is that just like, hey, I was reading a lot of Zora Neale Hurston, and more people need to give Zora Neale Hurston flowers.
Yeah. Well,
She deserves more credit.
yes. I
She's
mean,
just a great writer. I love her.
as a Florida writer, she is she is part of the fabric of our state, and I really think as a writer based in Florida, she deserves homage and she deserves acknowledgement. And part of this was, this is a book, this is a text about text to some degree, books within books,
Right.
books about books. And to me, as a Florida writer, she's sits on a very high throne, and belongs on that throne. And of course, by the end of her life, people had forgotten that she was a writer and she was living, she was, I believe she was cleaning, if I remember correctly, cleaning nursing homes and things like that. And when she died, she was basically forgotten. It took Alice Walker's efforts to find her, locate her grave, for one thing.
Yeah.
And she's enjoyed a bit of a renaissance. And I always think about her when I'm driving through Orlando and passing Eatonville, and
I drive
that
through
was
it all the time.
Eatonville.
It's maybe 2 miles from my house, so
It should be it's deservedly a literary landmark because of her. And somehow in the course of the book, the characters, the constellations of the narrative details, and the character and who the Nat is, it kind of converged. Zora Neale Hurston had to be present to some degree because she was kind of in the background. Um, so yes.
I mean, there's also a moment where I will not give details, but I will say that you use blackout poetry
Yeah.
in a way that I have never seen before,
Thank you.
and I really love that. That was very special.
Yes.
Um, and I guess because I grew up in Florida, Zora Neale Hurston was just like, oh, she was a part of it. We learned about her, um, in school, and I'm just like, it is always a whenever people outside of the state, I think they don't necessarily know her as well. So it's always like, oh right, people. I guess she doesn't reach as far as she probably should.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The Bloody Bucket is out in 8 days. If you're
Yes.
listening to this on the day this drops, and you should go read it, dear listener. You should go buy it. Go pre-order it. And Doug will give you those details. I will also put links in the show notes for all this stuff. I
Thank you.
typically do. You ready for the next segment, Doug?
Yes.
Okay, it's time for the second act, where I will ask you broader, more bookish questions. And our first question is from my last guest, and you will be asked to provide a question for our next guest at the end of this segment.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question is from Viggy Barhampton, and her question is, what kind of research do you have to do for your books, and how much?
Well,
This book, I think, is particular. It feels like there is research involved. There's a lot of folklore and stuff.
quite a bit of folklore. Again, some of it's invented, but the research, some of the research that went into it was kind of difficult, because one of the things that emerged during the book had to do with the kind of racial violence that marked the state for decades and is often not talked about. Florida had more lynchings than any other southern states, and one of the things in particular that haunted me was a picture of a lynching that took place in Newberry, and it's referred to in the book, but it's a photograph, and basically they hid a woman under other bodies that had been murdered by these racist, these terrible racist people. And that photo was haunting and still haunts me to see it. And it's something that, especially in a state like Florida, where we feel history often being erased, it was something that I felt like it had to be talked about and had to be mentioned. And there were other things in the book that came up through not necessarily research, but sort of in ways that I didn't anticipate. One of them is alligator Alcatraz. And this was a complete accident. I have in this book, we have the Visaria State Prison is guarded by an alligator. And at the time I wrote that, there was no alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah, it didn't exist.
That came in late. But there's also a lot of inventing on my part in this book, which is kind of part and parcel with the theme. Some of the horrors linked to this has to do with, things, narratives bubbling up from beneath. And so I say there is a fair amount of research here, but it's not scholarship. Uh,
Right.
so I'm a dialogue driven author. My work my characters to me come to life through their voices, hearing their voices, getting an idea for what they sound like. And that doesn't necessarily come through research. It comes from my imagination.
Right. Do you do research for your other books? Have you done a lot of that, or is it the same? I mean, it feels like those are less. There is. I think there's some folklore in them, but it feels like that's stuff you already knew. You didn't actually do research specifically for the books.
No. Sometimes they emerge. The research comes about sometimes because I'm reading something. It'll kind of work its way in. When I wrote The Beasts of Visaria County, which is in some ways the predecessor to The Bloody Bucket, there are links between the two. It's not a sequel per se, but there's a connective tissue. There's a character that carries over. I was reading the biography of Paul Naschy, who is Jacinto Molina, who was a Spanish actor who played the Spanish werewolf Valdemar Daninsky in several films. And I borrowed a scene that he talks about in his biography where he was invited to a black mass in Germany, and during one of the filmings of his films, he said, "I can't talk about what happened in this black mass." And I always thought, wow, that's a really fascinating detail. I want to know more. So I kind of took that moment. I have a characters loosely based on Jacinto Molina in The Beasts of Visaria County. And I kind of used the black mass, and I kind of imagine all sorts of terrible things happening. It was really a lot of fun to write. So I'd say I'm not necessarily spending all my time in the library
Right.
writing something. But
When you need it,
when
it's
I
there.
yes, when I need it, it's there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm also
Yeah.
the novel I just finished writing. That was the most research I've done for anything ever. And I was like, is this what normal people do? Is this what normal writers do all the time? They're always reading like 5 books to get to write a single book.
Mm-hmm.
Question I ask everybody: who is a writer more people should be reading? And you can give me multiple names if you want.
I would say Charles Beaumont is one of them, who was a horror writer, science fiction writer in the 50s and 60s. He is, was the author of several episodes of The Twilight Zone, but he wrote a series of. He's I think one of the greatest American short story writers who's ever lived. Some of his stories are just so wow and outstanding, and he himself had such a interesting story, a tragic story actually, because his death was odd and tragic.
Wasn't he was the died young because he
Yes,
aged? Yeah,
yeah,
that's
prematurely.
Have you read Josh's story about him?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Um,
He's come up a lot, I think, just because Josh read that story,
yeah,
and now I've talked
yeah.
I've talked about Charles Beaumont now 4 different times.
Another one is, I'd say, Dan. I'm finishing up a book by Dan Shawn, and it's just amazing. It's One of Us. This is one of the best books I've read last year.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's not like Dan Shawn is somebody people aren't reading or hearing of, but I just think that book was just, I adored it. It's such a good book. I really enjoyed everything I've read by Dan Shawn. Brian Evanson as a short story writer, somebody that I'm always, if I have an anthology with a Brian Evanson story, I want to read that story. Another one is Clint Smith. Clint Smith is a contemporary writer who is written some really, really wonderful short stories. And I don't think a lot of people talk about Clint's work. Clint deserves special attention, and he just, everything he does is just wonderful.
I will put links to all that stuff in the show notes. I don't know if anyone ever clicks on them, but I will still put them there. Let's see. What's the question should I do? What was your gateway horror media?
Let's let's see. I would say probably Universal horror movies. And but there were several things. I mean, when I was a kid, I was a kid during the tail end of the Monster Kid era. So I kind of got the monster model things. I came into the, in fact, I think over my head you can see Dracula,
Yeah,
the
I saw
yeah.
all of them up
um,
there.
I still have that, and Frankenberry. One of the earliest movies I remember watching on my own is Son of Frankenstein. And I've told this story before in other places and other interviews, but when I was a little kid, I remember watching Son of Frankenstein by myself at late at night. It was late at night. Somehow I was up in front of a TV watching this, and then I had to walk back to my bedroom. And it was down a dark hallway. And what my parents did was they would hide in the doorways and jump out at me when I was coming back after watching Son of Frankenstein. I still love Son of Frankenstein so much. And and I think I've been chasing that feeling of going down the hallway and and
Having
everything
your parents
I
scare
was,
you.
yes, I've been chasing that feeling. It was, exhilarating and scary.
I was gonna say,
and,
how old
and
were you?
And my parent, oh, I was little, and my parents warn me, don't tell people this story. It sounds like we abused you. But it was great. I mean, I still think it's wonderful.
I mean, it always depends on the child's reaction.
Uh,
If it
my mom took me to see American Werewolf in London when I was little, and
okay, great.
not realizing, not realizing all the sex and violence that was going to be in
Yeah,
that. Oh my God.
beware the Moors. Yeah, I
Beware
get
the
it.
slaughtered lamb, and
Yeah, exactly.
see you next Wednesday.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
It's
it's a wonderful movie.
a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. When do you know something is done?
Uh, it's kind of like making love. You kind of know when you're done. No, sorry, don't edit that out. Um,
I'm gonna leave it in. It's very funny.
um, really, some that's hard to say. Sometimes I kind of have an idea where it's going to end. Like the Bloody Bucket, I kind of knew where it would end, kind of a rough idea. I just didn't know the particulars. And like I said, that one, I kind of exceeded my expectations of what was going to be happening. But sometimes I'm completely taken by surprise. I am not a planner. I kind of pants it. And I write, I'm kind of learning the story as I write the first draft. So I don't always know. And
How do you know when to stop revisions?
um, that's hard to say too. I mean, my process is pretty defined though. I handwrite all my first drafts, including novels. I know you or somebody else called me insane for that.
I mean, I don't want to say it's whatever works, but it is like I can't imagine. It's like those things when I get one of these moments in every interview where I'm like, "That's how you do it," yeah, and I'm like, "Well, it's like I can imagine writing a whole book, a whole novel by hand. I like my hands also like when I write longhand, I skip words.
Well, yeah, of course. And but when
I just can't do it. It makes me crazy.
but it's playing. It's sort of like, when you got crayons and you're drawing, you're not really worrying about what it's going to look like in the end. You're just kind of playing around. And
see, that's the way we differ, Doug.
and then I guess in terms of what was the question? What question am I answering? I lost track.
The question was originally, it doesn't. This is the whole point of this segment, is to broach into wider topics. It's not necessarily to answer every question perfectly, but it is. The question was, how do you know when your revisions are done? When do you know like a book's ready?
When I'm tired.
That's a good answer. Because it's usually my answer is I'm really tired.
Honestly, there's some truth in that when I stop thinking about it. When and when I feel like the character's journey, I'm very character oriented. When that character's journey is done and I'm done thinking about it, and I'm not kind of driving off somewhere, going from work to home, thinking about it and recycling things. When I've stopped doing that, when I've stopped thinking about lines I've written and thinking about how they should sound, it's done. And I'm done working on it.
I mean,
This
that's
is why I'm
good.
a terrible editor. I hate editing. I really hate editing what I've written. I really do.
I look forward to it, and then I start hating it. And I
Yeah.
think that's the. I love it at first, and then after a month of it, all
Yeah.
right, I'm done. I hate this. Um, let's see. What was the last book you read that evoked a visceral physical reaction?
Oh, well, I'm going to have to go back to One of Us by
One
Dan.
of Us.
It was very recent. In fact, I've got the last chapter to read.
Oh no.
Oh my God, this is such a beautiful, beautiful book and has just terrifying characters, but also wonderful characters. These when I read something and go, I wish I'd written this.
Yeah.
That is the response, and this is one of the books recently I've read where I went, oh God, I wish I thought of this. And the characters are just. I'm a big fan of the movie Freaks.
Yeah.
I
Freaks
love
is
movie
Freaks.
Freaks.
Freaks is great.
And this is like very much a direct homage to Freaks, but it's its own thing. It's the characters are rich and wonderful, and there's one character in particular, an uncle, or allegedly an uncle. He's not really an uncle. He is terrifying. He is so scary. He is scarier than any of the circus people in this book. And it's very much that sense of dread when you know what he's going to do, what he's trying to do. I mean, I just didn't, when I'm really worried about the characters, I felt that reading Sean's book. It's a wonderful read.
Now I have to read it.
It's so good.
I have so many books to read, Doug. What's the hardest scene or character you've ever written, and what made it so difficult?
I would say probably there's a chapter in the Bloody Bucket that was really difficult. And it is the character who is a mystery to so many people in this book, who is, it takes me back to the 1930s in Florida. The pivotal scene that comes near the end it was a long chapter, and it was a tough chapter because I was trying to get it right. I wanted to be sensitive to the kind of histories I was writing about. I wanted to do it with sensitivity, but with honesty and with a sense of honoring these people who lived in the state before me. And it was so tough. That's the chapter I spent the most time on, just trying to make sure I got it as right as I possibly could. It was tough because there's a moment of violence in it that I thought, if I do this in an exploitative way, I'm doing it wrong. I had to do it with grace and generosity. And I don't know if I landed it, but I hope I did. But it was a tough one to write.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. It works. Works really well. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yes.
But it has to be.
Yes, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. It has to go that way. Well,
Yeah,
you were talking about that earlier, and other people on this podcast have said the same thing. It's like, yeah, it's a really ghastly, awful thing, but it had to.
Yes,
it had to happen. The story it has to happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
What time is it? How much time we got? Let's see. What's okay? Do you use semicolons in your drafts?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think if the sentence, I honestly, I'm not a huge fan of semicolons, and I'm not.
That's fine. I
mean,
I don't need
writers, when we could talk about form of punctuation, I have a whole spiel when I teach writing with my students about that. That I know it's winking at you. It's winking at you, but doesn't mean you should touch it. Don't touch that key.
Don't trust it.
Know what you're doing. I find them to be, if I were writing a 19th century pastiche, I might use semicolons. Otherwise, I kind of think that they are not necessary. And I've had copy editors put semicolons into my writing. I take them out usually. Sometimes I leave them, but I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I will occasionally add one in line editing. I will throw in maybe two in a whole book, maybe one or two. I almost never use them on a first draft. I don't. I just write commas. I'm just like comma, 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 and M dashes, M dash, M dash, M dash, M dash. I
There's
should
a,
probably.
there's a culture club joke in this, comma chameleon.
I've done there's a uh there's a Chapel Roan song. Was it a something about karma, and that has supplanted the. I did a comma joke with one of my writer friends with that. This will be the last question for this segment. I will ask you, what is the best piece of advice you followed?
When I took Jeff Vandermeer's Wonder Book workshop, there was something that I'm still applying, and this I've referred to this already, but it's the tactile experience of a pen. And in terms of letting your imagination play, when I realized until that point, I was typing all the time. I was typing first drafts. And what I found myself doing was I was editing as I wrote, and I was really taking up a lot of mental energy with that. And I wasn't focusing on what I was supposed to. One of the things that this workshop suggested was trying to write, use longhand to see if that allowed more creative play. And it absolutely has, to the point where, yeah, I'm longhanding novels. And I know that's insane, but really, and it's slow,
But
but
also, doesn't it hurt?
not anymore. It's kind of like a muscle. Not anymore.
Not
I'm
anymore.
too callous. I mean,
Yeah,
my hands
gotta
are
grow
I
those
have
calluses.
calluses that are 4 inches.
Yeah,
Um,
more the wrist. I think it's more the wrist for me. I have
it's
really
yeah,
bad carpal tunnel, so
yeah. But it is it's it's a more continuous, free flowing process where I can let my imagination play. And it was really good advice from this workshop that, like I said, I still apply.
again, if it, I, yeah, I will always say, if something works,
Hmm.
it works. You can't argue with it. It makes things happen. If you can write a book because I longhanded instead of typed it, then that's good. It's at the end of the day. That's all you need. What's your question for our next guest?
Well, let's do this. Stephen King famously has said, he'll try to terrify you. If he can't terrify you, he'll horrify you. And if he can't do that, then he'll go for the gross out. For your next guest, have you ever resorted to the gross out?
Well, Doug, my next guest is Stephanie Jensen. So the answer is yes. I almost certainly will. I most certainly think that yes, from what I've read.
Yeah,
So
she's going to have a good answer for that.
yeah, I was going
She's
to say
like, are you kidding me? Do you know who I am?
yeah, exactly. But that's perfect. It's a perfect question. I couldn't have set it up a better. Um, I think I don't know. I've said this before. I feel like you have to have. I hesitate to call something horror unless it's willing to do that. Unless it's willing to be gross, just a little. Like it adds a little bit of a gross detail into something that didn't really need it, but adding the detail makes it that thing.
So, since it's Stephanie, why not ask it this way?
Okay.
When is it necessary to be as gross as possible?
That's a
When is
good.
it necessary?
Yeah, I like that. That's a
I
really
think
good
that's the
question.
question to ask.
Okay, I will.
Because she knows when to pull back too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's there is obviously feathering involved, back and forth, but there was the thing I just finished. I'm like, there was a moment where I'm like, I could just leave this detail out. It's not essential to the story, but it tells you what kind of story it is, I think, by adding
Hmm.
that little gross.
Well, I love Lucio Fulci movies.
Well, I I don't I wouldn't use the word love when you're discussing Fulci
Oh,
movies.
absolutely. I would. Are you kidding
Okay.
me? I love
I'm
Fulci.
okay. I will happily watch them and enjoy them. I don't know, love is a strong word. Love
You're
is
not watching them right then.
is there I didn't know there was a right
There's a
way.
right way to
Uh,
watch Fulci.
oh, okay. I haven't watched Fulci movies since I was like 19 years old. So I
I
don't
I love City of the Living Dead. I think that's just one such a trippy movie. And
I mean, I think that's my biggest contention is just like they're just nonsense. None
yeah,
of them make any sense at all. They're just like they're pretty, they're beautiful, and they're grotesque, and like a really interesting like the cinematic, the cinematography, the way they look is really fascinating. But the
it's just that
story is
ride.
yes.
You're not supposed to be looking for narrative.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that narrative.
Not no narrative in this narrative film we're supposed to be watching. There's no story. It's just
Well, set
scenery.
piece after to set piece to set
Yes.
piece, but they somehow go together.
Okay.
You know?
All right. It's time for our final segment, Doug. It is time for blood. It's time for struggle. It's time for trouble. It's time for things that you've had problems with, be it nuts or bolts, be it philosophical problems, ethos, business issues, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you're willing to talk about on the air. That is what we will discuss. What do you got?
Well, I was speaking to a dear friend of mine recently who's also a writer, and he was asking if he should be harder on himself. To be, I should be harder on myself. And I always think we got to be nicer to ourselves as writers. Man, this is difficult work, and sometimes thankless work, and it's certainly you need another job to do it. Often you need a day job,
Most of the time.
and I just think as writers need to give themselves a little more grace and generosity and reward yourself for this really hard work. And I was thinking about that when I was driving work today about being hard on yourself. It's the world is hard enough on us than for us to be hard on ourselves. And I think, you
Is
know,
this is this an intervention, Doug? Is that why you're here?
well, do you write every day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not I mean every workday. I don't write on weekends typically.
Okay. So
You
same
know.
with me. I don't write on weekends either, typically, unless I haven't written on a weekday. I kind of and I was thinking about how there's a certain level of privilege in that, being able to say you write every day. And not many people can do that just because of the material reality of their lives. And it's just that, man, we could be talking about Fulci.
I, I
What's your
think I've
favorite Fulci movie?
we've already exhausted all my Fulci talk, Doug. I'm very
Okay. All
sorry.
right. But no, I mean, I love this genre. And I know there's sometimes people get frustrated with it. It's like it's not being good enough to me. I'm not really, finding the readership I want. But I
Yeah.
I freaking love this genre. It is. You were asking before about Gateway, and I've had so many different ways it has made my life wonderful and fun. And um, I just think we need to enjoy it as much as we can. And because this life is so short. And of course, horror reminds us of that. And I don't know, is this what you're looking for? I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling now.
I mean, typically this is a very free form segment. So it can be about whatever, whatever the issue is. It's more like usually people have something that they're like frustrated with, like, I have to decide this thing. What do I do? Oh, or I had a hard time writing this thing. I'm writing this right now and I don't know how it ends. What do I do?
I'm writing this. Well, I'm working on a novella called Mosquito Men right now. And I've done I've got the first draft done except for the last chapter. but I'm going ahead and writing the second chapter because I'm going to use that to figure out what the last chapter is. And I've just got to go from the very beginning to the end now again and do the whole thing again. And I think I'll know how it ends. Right now, I don't know how it ends. And that's a little scary, right? It could just be, might not have an end, or it might need to keep going, which would be terrible because that'll mean,
it's not a novella. It's not a novella anymore. Now it's a novel.
Yeah. Yeah. I like novella. Do you like novellas?
I mean, sure. I like novellas. I don't write them.
Why not? As a form, there's just something so perfect about them.
I want that. I settled. I mean, I had to really. I mean, I technically with this thing I just finished. I would describe it as 2 novellas that I smushed together to make it a 90,000 word novel, which is very long for me. For some people, that's nothing. Some people pump out 150,000 word books without an issue, and I can't get myself to get that much. And I feel like there is a predilection for the publishing industry to like things that are shapes they know. The size the book they want. Like it's 90 to 100,000 words. We know that is. That's what we want. And I'm like, and it's a part of like I can write a 60,000 word novel like nothing. Easy peasy, not a challenge. And I'm like, well, what does a book I wrote look like if it's 90,000 words? So there's a part of it that partially is that. I could easily, again, I write a novella, sure, but there is a part of me that I like that little extra runway to develop something, to make it, I don't know, to add in that little bit of extraness to it. Novellas are I don't know. I don't want to just say that, it's capitalism tells me that I should just write novels, but there is a part of that.
Yeah. I guess there is always that friction with the marketplace in terms of form. But there's something so perfect about the form of the novella for me. It's like you get more development than a short story, yet you have that sense of that structure it's more in common with a short story, I think, than a novel that I just find so satisfying.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I read novellas all the time. I've read multiple ones for this podcast. There's also like this weird dividing line between when a novella turned into a novel. And you ask different people, and they're like, there are people who have read my novels, 60,000 words, which is a short novel, but it is a novel. Yeah. And they're like, oh, this novella was really good. I'm like, that's not a novella. No. You don't know what I don't know what you think a novella is. If it's not like, yes, it's not like a Stephen King, I don't write this, these giant fat books or like a epic fantasy but that I don't feel like people accept that to be the novel. That's not what a novel is. A novel is, I mean, if you go by HWA standards, it's over 40,000 words.
Yeah, 40,001 word.
Which is not very long. I
have a book called The Trick that's right around that length, and I never know what to call it. It's not a novella, by those definitions, but it's hard to call it a novel. So I just said short novel, which is kind of the same thing as a novella, but not.
It's not. It's a short novel. It's fine. Yeah. It's how I describe my books. They're short novels.
Yeah.
They're 50, 60, sometimes 70,000 words, but no more. This is the thing I just wrote. By far the longest thing. I don't know. I think there is an element of the moment. That's the thing I've been thinking about. I don't know if there was no marketplace, if I wasn't selling my books, if I had no intent to sell them, I didn't care about making money at all, if I just wanted to write anything I wanted, what would that look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I can't know. It doesn't, because that world doesn't exist. There is, I know there are writers who literally write whatever whim come to them, if be it a poem, a short story, a novella, a novelette, which I'm not even sure what a novelette is sometimes, or a novel or some epic. They do whatever their heart goes, and whatever the form turns into, what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they even realize that the moment that they have touched the world that has a place where we sell books and we have to make money to do it, and the market and publishing is just set up the way it is for many
Mm-hmm.
millions of reasons, that we have to sell, a novel looks like a novel. Novel's 100,000 words ish, and we'll make exceptions for the really great
Yeah.
sellable ones that are really long or shorter, either way, but we like it when they're this long. And there's no way for me to exist and to like shape what I and how I write without the knowledge of that.
Mm-hmm. That's
And I like I'm teaching an intro to publishing class for my local writing group, and it's like, you should know this, that the market has shapes it likes.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and then, like, is that good or bad? I don't know. It's neither really. It's this thing. It exists. You can adjust your writing to the market or not, but even if you think you're not doing it, you are, because you know it exists. You can't. It's like gravity. You don't get to ignore
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
and like when you say, oh, like, do you write, like, I would write novellas if there was no like pressure to write a longer, like, just because novels are easier to sell, even when you're like, selling books at a table. It's easier to say, like, look at this. This is a comfortable shape.
Yeah,
Here, sell.
that's
People are
true.
used to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though some people prefer short stories. Some people prefer like novellas. That's all they want to read.
Yeah. And we're experiencing the demise of the digest size fiction magazine, like, fantasy and science fiction, which used to be great homes for novelettes.
Yes.
That's how I learned what a novelette was, by reading those things, and coming across novelettes by people like Lucius Shepard, which were always amazing. But yeah,
I have a collection of Lucio Shepard that I need to read.
which one?
It has a cheetah or jaguar on the cover. I think it's just
The
the best.
Jaguar Hunter. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the best of, I think, but it includes that. Yeah.
Yeah. What great stuff. I mean,
That's what I mean. It's like, it's again on the TBR, the million-mile long TBR. I just added, I think, 8 books today to my TBR.
when I was a teenager, when I was trying to write short fiction for the first time, I was really just trying to channel Lucius Shepard, who was just at the time was just doing such cool stuff that I mostly understood, but maybe I just wasn't nearly as fully formed as I needed to be before I tackled that kind of thing.
I was just writing Stephen King. I read Night
Yeah,
Shift.
that too.
I read Night Shift and Skeleton Crew and went, I'll just write this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I always wanted to write a story like The Boogeyman. God, yeah. From Night Shift.
It's my first Stephen King.
Yeah.
It's Night Shift. Night Shift I still recommend to people if you want to start. Go read short story collections, and Night Shift is like incredible. I love it. And that cover, the hand, the eyes on it. Oh,
yeah.
I love it so much.
Man.
But I mean, I don't know. There's people who can earn that cachet that they can publish their novelettes. Mm-hmm. They can form a collection around a novelette or something like that.
A lot of those stories were published in men's magazines.
Yes.
You go through the porn layouts, and then you get to the Stephen King.
Exactly. I mean, Stephen King talks about that in On Writing. He talks about like his early stories were all like in. Yeah, like
gallery.
Yeah, skin mags, as he called them. Yeah.
We need more skin mags selling fiction. That's what we need.
I mean, that might be the only way we get it. Like sex, romance, erotica, whatever you want to call it, is the only genre that will drive sales. So, I mean, if that is the way you have to get people, I mean, I'm like, when people talk about romantasy, I'm like, hey, it's selling genre fiction. That's all. That's the only way we're gonna get there. See, this is what we're just grousing about the marketplace. That is what the segment's for. But I mean, I do think there is an element of like, it's not that novellas are bad. It's just that, I can't. I don't know. I think I would still end up writing the
I think you'd
very.
write a good novella. I think
I
you do.
could.
I think you rock it, man.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't have people ask me, "Do you want to write short stories?" I'm like, I could.
But
I
now you
am.
are, right?
I'm
Now
for
you
the.
are.
Yeah, one for a very specific purpose. I'll probably just, and if it
I
doesn't
know
get,
which one that is.
I mean, it's not a secret. I'm writing for the Shining anthology. I'm pretty excited about my idea, but I'm not going to say it out loud until the call is over, so no one steals it. Because I think it is really good.
Cool.
But if they don't want it, I will probably just give it away. I'll probably just whip up a little cover and
make it advertisement.
Yeah, basically. Like, hey, here's a free thing. If you want it, subscribe to my newsletter. You get my rejected Shining story, rejected Overlook story. We're out of time, Doug. We're not out of time. There's no podcast police, but we're over an hour, so it's probably best to call it a day. But before we go, tell people where they can find you online, where they can find your books, how they can go and pre-order or order The Bloody Bucket.
You can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Apple Books as a pre-order. You can go to douglasfordwrites.com and find links to all my work. And you can find me on social media on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook, but not X.
It's like
so there.
That was that. Is that a joke from Robin Hood Men in Tights? I think at one point they mentioned something. Everyone just
yes.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you for joining me. It was lovely.
Thank you for having me.